Little Horse and Big Conversation. Welcome to Little Horse and Big Conversation, where we give them their say, let the horse guide the way. Here at Little Horse and Big Conversation, we have the choice, so let's give them a voice. Here at Little Horse and Big Conversation, Little Horse and Big Conversation.
Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of the Little Horse Big Conversation podcast with your hosts Amy Mitchell and myself, Ross Cooper. And today, another insightful little topic straight from Amy's baby brain. Would you like to do the intros?
That makes it sound like I'm pregnant. Can I just, for the record,
disclosure?
just for the record, no, I am not.
She's having puppies.
That would be more fun, wouldn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
please do.
No, it's funny. I was looking because obviously I am a bit in two camps. I am very much involved in the horse world, but I also dip a toe into the dog world with my man trailing stuff.
Dip a toe. You're literally waist deep.
I mean, maybe. So as well as having an interest in reading horse stuff, I'm also interested in looking at dog stuff. And somebody had put a quote on a dog training post that I thought was really relevant to life. If we're going to go all existential here, that it was that being ready isn't a feeling, it's a decision. And the more I thought about it, like I was driving around between appointments and I was thinking about this as a concept, and I just think it's such an important thing, because I think understanding that you are not in not many circumstances when there's something that you want to do that pushes you outside your comfort zone and is a challenge. In most situations, you are never going to actually feel ready. So waiting for that feeling of being of everything being lined up and being 100% prepared and everything being ready, it almost gives you an excuse to procrastinate. Whereas if you reach a certain point and then make a decision, okay, right, now I'm ready now. This is the point at which I'm gonna do the thing. And you make it as an informed decision. And you can then go ahead and like plan a route in to whatever it is, but you make that decision and then you get on with it. And I think that's where progress lies. Like you know, life is short. You're never going to achieve that much, or you're not going to reach your goals if you're always waiting for that feeling of everything is perfect, now I can do the thing.
You got any examples? So when is a situation where you've not felt ready, but you've gone for it anyway, presented itself to you? And how
Well,
did that, like, have you
to be
got
honest,
any example when you have gone for it and when you haven't?
um, I feel like this kind of whole another quote on this is the whole feel the fear and do it anyway. Like I feel like that's kind of I try to live my life by that, really. Um, and I think you know, as someone who has set up a number of businesses and runs businesses, um, you know, I think if you're like when we set up the IEP course, when Debs and I set that course up, like if we'd waited until every single aspect of that course was perfect and we felt it was really ready to share with the world, like we never would have launched it. it just never would have happened. So you kind of have to reach a point where you're like, right, this is good enough. Let's get it out there, and then we can take feedback and we can improve things and build on it as time goes on. And like if bits aren't right, that's okay. Like we can fix it. But if you wait and keep kind of like waiting for every single aspect to be ready, you'll just never do it. And, and
I really like that quote.
yeah, and I mean, so many
And
times, like people will say, people have dreams and people have things they want to do, and you'll say, why haven't you done it? Like, why aren't you doing it? Oh, because I need to wait for this to happen, or I've got to wait for this thing here to be right and ready. All these things are never going to be right and ready. Like, I mean, I don't have kids, but you hear it all the time with people who have children saying there's never a right time. It's the same principle. Like, there's never a right time for most things, but you've just got to kind of be bold and take a risk and say, right, okay, I'm going to do this now. We can't be, we
yeah.
can't be constantly living in fear of failure. Like, why do we feel? Why are we so conditioned to think that failure is a bad thing?
Failure isn't failure if you learn a lesson from it.
100%. I mean, yes, okay, yes, there are circumstances where failure isn't great, but for the most part, for sure. Um, but for the most part, I set up the first business I ever set up was a small coffee business. I probably never told you about this.
No, this is new
Yeah.
information. This is an exclusive.
Um, and I massively, I mean, I didn't really know what I was doing. And I quite quickly panicked because it wasn't taking off. And I gave up on it very quickly. So, to all intents and purposes, that was a failure. But I learned loads from that. And it didn't make me think, okay, I'm not never going to set up another business, but it made me think, okay, what have I learned from this? Probably ought to know what I'm doing a bit better next time and have more of a strategy in place, and but also not be afraid to kind of dig in when things feel like they're not going in the direction you want them to, and not kind of just like, oh shit, this isn't working, and panic and step away from it. So
May I
I
ask a
learned a lot from
question?
that. Yeah, go for it.
So, just, my head's going in a couple of different directions at the moment. And I think, the whole premise of what may stop us from moving forward with something is feelings.
Mm,
So just using your coffee business as an example,
yeah.
how did you feel when you started it, and then how did you feel when it ended? Because I think this relates back to, well, not directly, but the Maya Angelou quote about how people make you feel. And I know this isn't exactly person related, but we
Well,
always remember how we feel about something.
kind of was, I think, in some ways as well, because um so I went into it. So going back to the old change change stuff that I've talked about before, I was incredibly unhappy with the jobs that I was like my employed work. Um so it was that unhappiness with the status quo that made me want to do something different. Um and I thought this would be something that I could do that would be relatively straightforward and scalable. But a big part of it was the person I was in a relationship with at the time was a very unsupportive person. And I also, I mean, this was, crikey, it must be about 20 years ago now. Maybe not quite that long, but it was a decent amount of time ago. Um, and I went into it definitely underprepared. But also I didn't have the same level of self-confidence that I have now. So, and my partner at the time was, as I say, was very unsupportive. And as soon as anything looked like it wasn't an immediate, like massive success, he was very, oh, well, I told you this wouldn't work, da 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 da. So my levels of self-confidence that were already quite low, it just, rather than go, actually, no, I'm going to make this work. And I think retrospectively, I could have made it work, but I don't think I could have done at the time. I don't think the person that I was at the time would have had the resilience. But part of the reason that I have the level of resilience that I've got now is in part because of that experience. So, yes, at the time, okay, it was a failure. It kind of wasn't because I learned loads from it. And that I learned from it, I've then put into things that I've done since then that have been a success. I also set up an online, like an online community membership. More recently, that was since I've lived here, so that was probably about, I don't know, about 7 years ago. And that went okay, but again, it didn't do as well as I wanted it to. But I didn't see that as a failure either, because that ended up being a stepping stone on the way to Orion coming into existence. A lot of the content that I had for that, I've been able to reuse. So, I think it's how you frame things. Like even when I decided to close that down, I didn't see it as a failure. It was more like, okay, this is, this isn't going to quite go where I wanted it to, but I'm going to use the successful parts of it to create something else.
Yeah. It's being able to take a step back and look what might be happening in the bigger picture and what we can take away from a situation which will benefit and contribute to something else further down the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we can't always see that. We don't know what's going to happen in, 2 months, 2 years, 20 years time. It's for one, for what, for want of clichéing, it's about trusting the process.
100%.
But
Yeah.
we find it very hard to trust a process that we aren't sure where it's going, but also how easy do we find it to trust ourselves?
Yeah, I think that's probably a big part of it.
And
Like,
that's actually, to say that out loud, I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate to that some way or another. That's actually quite sad that we've been taught that we can't trust in ourselves in whatever capacity that might shape up to be.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
do you think sort of, bringing that back to that decision of being ready, what factors do you think come in primarily as a bit of an interplay which do stop people from moving forward with making that decision? So if we're taking the feelings away for the moment, is it, you know, I mean, I don't think you can really isolate feelings from it.
No, and I think it that's exactly it. All comes down to feelings, really. Um, but it's it
Do you
should
think for a
come
lot of
from,
people it's the unknown?
yeah, I think that's a big part of it. But you can, I don't think that should, there are some things where of course the outcome is going to be unknown, but a lot of the time I think you have to just make a decision, okay, right, this is what I'm going to do. And then I'm not saying don't do preparation. Like you can have a plan and you can prepare properly, but even with all the planning and the preparation, you're probably not going to feel inside like ready. And there'll always be some other bit of preparation that you could do. There'll be some other thing that you can do, which if you keep constantly chasing the perfect point to start something or to do something, you'll never reach it. It will always be on the horizon. Whereas if you can kind of draw a circle around what is good enough and then be like, right, okay, I might still feel nervous about this and might feel like this is hard and this is pushing me outside my comfort zone. But if I look at it just from a purely practical perspective, these are the building blocks that I put in place. That's good enough. I'm going to do it and make that choice. And then what's the worst that can happen? It goes wrong. You learn from it. You try again. You try something slightly different. Like,
Yeah, I think it's reframing the element of, not looking at it as a success or a failure, look at it as lessons.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that way, I think, and that way, I mean, if you say that, so anyone who's listening right now, this actually is might be quite a good exercise. So if you think of a situation, or if you don't even think of a situation, you think of looking at something and going, am I going to succeed or am I going to fail? Where does that actually sit in your body?
Yeah.
Now, I know we're both doing it now, and if I'm thinking about success or failure specifically, the success I can feel higher up in my body, the failure I can feel a lot more weighted.
Mm.
And everyone will feel this differently because, these are associated with the emotions. If you think of it and reframe it as, what could I learn from this situation? I don't know how you're feeling if you're doing this, Amy, but I feel actually a lot lighter and more curious.
Mm. That's the thing, isn't it? Like it's not
Mm,
it again, it's exactly that. It's how you frame it. It's it, it's looking at it. I think it's using that kind of analytical side of things and being able to say, okay, that didn't go right. Let's break it down. What can I learn from this? And looking at, you know, what did I do? What did that cause? What are the things that I didn't want that came out of that? What did I not achieve that I wanted to achieve and why? Okay, so now I've been able to isolate some of those things. I'll now go back and I'll try that again, but I'm going to do it a bit differently. And that, that's surely, I mean, you must from a horse trainer's perspective, that's
yeah. I think there's an element of a feeling of lack of control too. And I think this is maybe not, I won't say it's a societal thing, but with how busy our minds can be these days and how much we feel that we have to contend with, I
mm,
think for a lot of people, having an element of control within their lives with multiple different aspects, especially when it comes to forward planning,
yeah.
I think not again linking back to not knowing and having that lack of control about where things might go, not being able to, mediate certain parameters. I think that may come into play for a lot of people as well. And it's quite interesting because control is just an illusion. We don't actually
Yeah,
have
of course.
control.
Yeah.
And this is, very, very prominent when it comes to working with our horses because we don't have control over our horses. We have an influence,
Yeah.
but thinking that we have control is a massive illusion.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
And I think
Yeah. I think it once you can let go of that as an idea.
and see it all as a process of where you're going.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to, from my perspective, thinking about all of this, when we're working with our own mindset and going, okay, well, I don't feel ready, but I'm going to decide to do this.
Yeah.
I think that's different for us because it's just us we've got to look out for. I think when we're looking at something with our horses, I think we need to be a little bit more conscientious about how we're doing things. And like you said earlier, preparation. So as we know, preparation with our horses is massively important, and we need to shape up in the correct way
Yeah.
whether we're looking at it from an emotional resilience, whether we're looking at it from an understanding of cues, whether we're looking at it from relaxation, whether we're looking at it from a movement perspective.
Yeah.
And I think extending that slightly, there's I think been quite a lot of movement from what I've seen maybe over the past 12 months with people feeling a little bit stuck with how to move forward with their horse because they want to wait till the timing is completely right. And
Yeah.
I've been pretty guilty of it as well. You're waiting for everything to just fall into place. You want the muscles to be in the right place. You want their movement to be top notch. You want their responses to be on point. I think there is a difference between ensuring that your horse has got balance on their own 4 feet and the right foundations in place. Because
Mm,
I see it as a layering effect, blending, and going, my horse can't really balance themselves without a rider. They are heavily under muscle, but I'm going to get on anyway and then work like that. But
yeah.
so it's that integration of parts over a period of time. But we need to be massively considerate when it comes to working with horses or whether we're looking at working with dogs. Anything that doesn't solely concern us because we've got a second party to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Things need to be good enough. I'm not
Yes, yes,
advocating like
especially.
jumping in feet
Oh
first
no, of course, I know you're
with
not.
no preparation. I think, yeah, things absolutely need to be good enough, and you need to prepare and plan, but don't don't allow that planning and preparation to reach a point where you are striving for the perfect moment, because the perfect moment doesn't exist.
Yes, and I think this is where you can help to mediate these, the variables, let's say,
Yeah.
is if you are, so maybe you've been asked to do a pleasure ride and it's your first time with, maybe a horse that's been able to saddle for a year and they've maybe done a few quiet hacks. Don't go and do a really busy pleasure ride, which is maybe 16K.
Yeah.
Maybe organize to go out with a group of friends or do a smaller ride somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Do a guided ride.
Yeah.
Look at
Take a smaller
progressing to
step.
the point.
Yeah.
Smaller steps. Yes, that
Yeah.
was much more eloquently put than where I was going with that one. But yeah, smaller steps because you're still moving forward. You're still making a decision
Absolutely.
and you're not holding yourself back. So in that way, it's going to give you little drips and effectively, good feelings about what you're doing. You're still moving forward progressively. You're not feeling stuck, but you're mediating things for you. But obviously, importantly, in those situations, competition start in small classes, and local shows, as opposed to obviously you need to work your way up anyway. But start with smaller classes, so it's not so overwhelming for them. And again, see your first time doing anything like this is what is that going to present for us? What do we need to then take away and learn from this situation to then improve going forwards?
Yes.
Every horse I see as a CPD opportunity
Yeah.
because there's always something you'll go learn from every single interaction, and it's being able to come at it from a flow state.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you carefully push your comfort zone and like almost like make a decision to be making decisions, um, mad as that sounds, but if you decide actually, okay, I'm gonna make a point of proactively deciding, right, I'm just gonna do this now. This is good enough. And reframe it in your mind as a learning opportunity. And that if things don't go as you would want them to, that's great because that's what you're going to learn the most from. If everything is always going right, that's fine until it doesn't, because you've then gone so far down the road and you think you're fantastic at something, but then things go wrong and you've got nothing to look back on, no learning. Your skill set is so much smaller, I think. Whereas if you've had bumps in the road where you've had to you've tried something out and it hasn't quite worked, so you've kind of analyzed it and gone back and you've tried something different and you've learned from it, suddenly you've got a much deeper skill set. I actually think it's a
No,
really positive thing. And I think if you can reframe things in your mind that actually when things don't go right, this is the best learning moment, then suddenly the world is your oyster. Whereas if you're
I think
constantly
it's quite.
afraid of if it doesn't go right and everything must be perfect and people are going to think I'm stupid and all that kind of negative kind of lens on it, your growth is going to be so much smaller and your joy, like your joy in everything is going to be smaller, isn't it? Whereas I
Oh
kind
God,
of
yeah.
like I almost, sometimes when things don't go right, I use the dog training example. Sometimes in the moment things don't go right and we get to the end of a session, I think, oh, I buggered that up and I let the dog down and this, that, and the other. But then you come away from it and you go over it and you talk to other people, okay, right, what happened here? And then you have this like little light bulb moment of, right, I see that bit of body language that I missed. I'm going to really look out for that. And then the next time it happens and you see it and things go right, it's like, wow, it's great. But I think you need those little bits of frustration to sort of drive you and think, right, okay, I don't want that to happen again. So what am I going to do to improve this for next time? And it's if you start seeing it that those feelings of frustration or disappointment and so on, use them as a driving force rather than as something to shut you down, then the opportunities become massive.
Look at it with curiosity.
100%.
And you touched on this in one of our previous episodes as well. I think you used an example of when you well, if you may feel frustrated about something, you take a step away for a few minutes.
Yeah.
If something you're working on isn't going 100%, look at the situation observationally and go, okay, what could I, look at it with curiosity. What could I
Yeah.
be changing here? How is my horse feeling? What's happening in the environment?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Which makes it all the more exciting. What you can take away from that in a productive, progressive way, and then make decisions based on that.
Yeah. 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 I think that's and that just changes the whole vibration of the whole thing, doesn't it? It
We're
becomes,
like an uplifting vibration.
yeah, exactly. It becomes uplifting and yeah, rather than sucking the life out of you
Yeah.
and then giving you this like and then allowing yourself to think, oh my gosh, next time I really have to be perfect before I start, and then you're even less likely to take a decision to do something.
Progress is perfect. There's no such thing as perfection.
Exactly.
Unrealistic, unattainable. And if you focus on that, you're missing everything else in between.
Well, so once again, Ross, this feels like you've come up with like some wise words to round up a podcast. You're becoming like our little guru in the background there. Just out with some little wise comment to end. Ah,
Right. Well, another episode has come to an end.
yeah. Thank you all very much for listening. I hope you find something useful from that, and that you can maybe think about aspects of where you can just kind of stop striving for perfection and feeling of readiness and just jump in feet first and see what happens, because that's where all the fun is. However, until next time,
See you
thank you very
soon.
much for listening.